Hey guys, I'm back again with another gameplay review, and today we are talking Destiny 2, the Witch Queen expansion. Whether you are a new player or a veteran player, this game has a lot to offer, so let's dive in and talk about some of those things. I happen to be a day one player, so I have played Destiny for a very long time. But I did take quite a long hiatus the last couple of years, so I really didn't play through, I believe, season 14 and 15. And I missed some things. And I realized when I decided to jump back in that I felt kind of lost. Things had changed. And so that made me kind of think, what do new players think about this game coming into it, where Destiny 2 is already in its fifth year with more than several expansions and seasons? So, how do they get all the information that they need? So I went back to some of the YouTube channels that I love to kind of refresh myself. And so I'm just going to quickly talk about, as a new player or somebody that's taken a long break from this game series, some of the things that might benefit you. So I went back to watch some of the video content on the lore of Destiny because, Destiny has a very long saga story behind it. And sometimes you forget who's the enemy and why they're the enemy and this and that. Clearly, it's all the people you got to shoot, but sometimes you want to know the story in the background, especially for new players coming into this universe. One of my favorite channels is from a creator called My Name is Biff, BYF, and he does some amazing lore and history videos for Destiny 2. And he also, does tips and tricks and talks about armor and weapons and things like that in gameplay. But his history and lore are fantastic. Evade is another channel that I really like for history and lore. The content they produce is very well done. And then I have been a follower of Cactus HD for a long time, so he does a lot of gameplay and tactics and, weapons and armor and things like that. So sometimes, I tend to be just like, I just want a gun, I just want a grenade and run and shoot and kill all the enemies. But you do have to kind of mix and play with your armor and your weaponry. So I like going to Cactus for that. So if you're new to the game, this might be a good way to introduce yourself into this universe. If you have stepped away from Destiny for some time and are jumping in back into the universe, you may want to follow some of these channels. The universe. So let's talk about the Destiny universe. It's got a very long past. It goes back eons, really. And it's really, a story as old as time. It's all about the light and the dark and the fight between them. And so we, as the guardians of this universe, are in the middle of this fight and coming to terms with everything that has happened and what faction is doing what and what enemy is coming from where and things like that. Presently, we are at the point where we're meeting one of our foes again, and this foe is a very cunning and devious foe. So and coming from the Hive, and I actually really enjoy the Hive expansions. I love the look of them. I love how dark they are. The Taken King expansion is probably my favorite of the Destiny expansions. I fell in love with that, and I sometimes still go back and play some of that content. Um, so yeah, I felt like that was brought back, although in a different way because the light is now infiltrated. Well, the light has been sort of channeled through the dark, which is kind of weird, and the look is different and the feel of it is different, but there's a lot of intrigue, there's a lot of things going on. I don't want to give spoilers. I want to keep this video as spoiler free as possible, but I would definitely pay attention to the storyline. It is going places and it is leading us to a big reveal and stuff like that. The game mechanics haven't changed too much, so this is very first person shooter style. It does have elements of like action RPG, of MMOs. It's just Destiny is a world of its own, really, a genre on its own sometimes. And the game mechanics have been pretty constant throughout every expansion. Although they do keep upgrading and changing the way that you interact with your armor, with your weaponry, and with your subclasses and things like that, the basic controls have not differed or altered at all. So that I love, so that anytime I pick up that controller to jump back into Destiny, I'm not like, oh, I have to learn all new controls because it's a new expansion. No, the controls remain the same. How I interact with the world is very different. So this time around, I would say some of the things that have changed are, the construction of weaponry and how you construct it, the introduction of new weaponry, and how you modify it, as well as your armor. Although the armor hasn't changed much, you still can, upgrade and masterwork and do things like that. They haven't introduced anything like what's happened with the weapons, where you can customize it or you can take it to, a table and customize it yourself. So that hasn't changed too much. They did bring the Void subclass into the 3.0 status, so you now have more ways to customize your subclass, which means that probably the solar and the arc are going to see that upgrade in future seasons or something, or an expansion. But I'm sure that it won't be long before we see them upgraded to the 3.0. Activity wise, every expansion and every season brings in new activities. So, depending on how many you have purchased, that really shows how much content you can play. But with this expansion, we do have a new public event. Of course, there's always a new strike or strikes. We just had the raid drop on the 5th. And then we have the PsyOps missions, we have the full campaign, you have the Wellspring, you have the weekly missions, and of course, you have the PvP version, which is Crucible and Iron Banner. So there's a lot to play. Even if you just have like the base free to play game and this expansion, there is enough content to kind of keep you going. There's enough challenges during the week to kind of keep you going. Now, Destiny is known, whether you love or hate it, Destiny is known for being a grind. I will not say that lightly. It is a grind. And it is a grind because you want to get better weapons, you want to hit those high light levels and things like that. So there are times where it feels very much like a job and not like a hobby. And those are the times where I end up stepping away because I want to enjoy my game. I don't want to be frustrated because I need to hit these marks or I need to hit this level of XP just to get what I want. And sometimes that can be a little bit frustrating, especially for players that don't play 8 to 12 hours a day like some of the content creators for Destiny do. I may only have an hour or two to play a week. So that really kind of puts players on two different platforms. So you may have players, and that happens throughout any game that is like a multiplayer online game. So even with Call of Duty, which is the world I came from, if you didn't put in the time to get the weapons and, just played constantly to get better weapons, better stats, and everything, then you always felt a little outclassed. And I feel that happens a lot with Destiny as well. Not just in the PvP mode where you're fighting against other players, but sometimes in the PvE side, because there is two different sides of the coin with Destiny. You have solo play, so there's solo players that just like interacting with the Destiny universe on their own. And use some of the matchmaking for like strikes or events that are just 3-person match made events. And then there are those that have teams or clans. And they continuously do the strikes, they continue nightfalls or the raids or the higher level content that is just for requires a 6-person team, I should say. And that can sometimes make you feel left out because they get weapons that are not available just in open world drops. They are not available in any of the other content. So you sometimes feel a little bit like, well, I'm missing part of this game. And that is very true. I don't see that this is going to be something that has a very viable solution anytime in the future. Even if they match made for raids, it's always it's always a gamble because raids are mechanic heavy. It's really hard to get through if you don't have a great team, or teams that are very new. So it's better to play with people that you know. It's better to play with players who know your play style and already know the mechanics and things like that. So that can sometimes be a little bit of a coin toss, whether you love or hate the game because you're a solo player versus you're a team player. One thing that I will say that I feel needs to happen with Destiny. Destiny has been out since 2013 with the first game, and Destiny 2 has been out since 2017. And I feel that it's time, and it's been past time, where we are able to make changes to our character. When I first loaded up Destiny 1 back in 2013, I created my character. And you do have, a few options for characters, which I'll touch upon in a moment. But I created my character, my favorite character, and I have had that same character for the past 8 years. And I refuse to delete my character. I've had that character from day one, but for crying out loud, can I update her hair? Can I update, things like that? It's just other games do let you do this. They let you go back and make changes to your character. And I feel like Destiny has not paid attention to that. And it's not really a big thing because most of the time your character's covered in armor from head to toe. But you know, it's something that I think would benefit players. I would love to change my character even a little bit. But I don't want to delete it to create a whole new character. I'm sentimental about it. I have had this character for 8 years. Why should I delete it? And while I do have up to 3 characters that I can create, my main character is the one I play most of the time. Certain people have one of each class. So you have the hunters, you have the titans, and you have the warlocks. And you do have different species. So you have humans, you have the awoken, and then you also have the exos. So you have like 6 different ways to customize your character. And some people have one of each. They'll have a hunter, they'll have a titan, and they'll have a warlock. But it's a lot of work to go through all of the weekly content with each character. It takes a lot of time. And I know that because I used to have 3 characters. And I had to scale back because I no longer had that kind of time to invest in this game. So, being able to customize that one character that I truly love and enjoy and I've had for 8 years would be something that I would greatly enjoy. So that brings us to the final question. Should you buy this game? If you have played Destiny before and you took a long break, is it the time to jump back in? Yeah, it is. I took a long break. Like I said, it was almost 2 years that I just didn't play Destiny or any other games really, but I did play other games here and there. But I find myself wanting to play. I find myself at the end of the day when it's getting time to go home going, what am I going to do in Destiny tonight? Or what am I going to accomplish today? Or what can I get done? And that really has to do with something that Destiny did, during this expansion, which I really, really enjoyed and hated at the same time. And that was that they release the classic and the legendary version of the campaign at the same time. So the day that the expansion was released, you had the option to either play the expansion, the campaign through in the classic mode, which basically your light level dictated how much damage you can do to the enemies. And then they had the legendary, which meant harder bosses, which meant a lot more ads and spawns in your game, and which also puts you at a handicap of 15 light levels below any of the requirements for that mission. So if you were playing a 1500 level mission, you were only you were only allowed 1485 as your light level maximum. So you were always kind of a little under what the level actually was, and made it very tough and challenging to get through the campaign. But I was stubborn, and I was like, no, I'm going to do this campaign, and I'm going to do it on legendary mode, and I am so glad I did. Yeah, it only means getting more drop. You get a double drops and stuff like that, but it was the challenge of it. It was not like, and I did kind of time myself. So I found that with the classic campaign, I could go through the mission in 20 minutes or less, and sometimes even less than 15 minutes. I can get through that mission, go through, run, kill everything, and be done. With the legendary campaign, I would spend sometimes hours just on the boss. Because it's so hard. There's so many ads sometimes. And, I was playing by myself. I've played this expansion pretty much by myself. And so you have to exploit every angle. You have to make sure that you have the right equipment on, that you have the right perks on, so that it benefits your play style. And my play style is very run and gun, so I do a lot of invisibility because I need to run through, the enemies, and then I kind of just pick them off one by one and keep going invisible. But yeah, you really get to challenge the way that you play, and I really enjoyed that. So I think that if you've taken a very long break, this might be the time to come back. And the story also is getting to a point where it's culminating. So you want to be here. You want to be present for what's to come. I'm really excited to see where the story is going. Um, Destiny can be a game that you can just sit and run and gun and throw grenades and just enjoy a free for all battle. It really can be. But it is also a game that has a lot of history, a lot of lore, and a lot for players to kind of dive into. So if you are the type of player that enjoys, saga type stories and enjoys deep lore and things like that, you will enjoy diving into those sections as well. That's going to be it for me today, guys. I have been enjoying the Destiny 2 Witch Queen expansion, and I hope that you guys have too. Come back in the summer where I will be reviewing the Vampire Masquerade Swan Song game, to be released hopefully on time, as we know a lot of games in development have been continually pushed back due to, the pandemic and everything. So I'm hoping this game will be on time. I will see you next time with more gameplay review content.